Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in every person's life when they realize that the biggest obstacle they face isn't someone else, it's themselves. It's not the heartbreak, the rejection, the silence from someone they cared about. It's the internal dialogue, the self, doubt, the fear of not being enough. Tonight, I want to speak to that inner battle, the one no one sees but everyone feels, because the real war isn't with them. It's inside you, and until you face it, nothing truly changes. We often look outward when things go wrong. We blame the person who hurt us, the opportunity that slipped away, the love that didn't last. It's natural. We're wired to look for cause and effect, to assign responsibility, to figure out why things feel broken. But more often than not, the battle we're trying to solve out there is really happening inside us. The real struggle is not with the person who left you, or the job that rejected you, or the friend who changed. It's with the feelings those experiences stir up inside you, the emptiness, the fear, the voice that quietly asks, "Was I not enough?" The hardest part isn't what they did, it's what it triggered in you. The echo of old wounds, the memories you thought you'd forgotten, the insecurities you've worked so hard to silence. There's a version of you that wants to evolve, that wants to trust again, love better, stand taller, but it's in conflict with the version of you that's been hurt, the part of you that remembers the rejection, the betrayal, the disappointment, and every time you take a step forward, that part pulls you back. Not because it hates you, but because it's trying to protect you, even if it's protecting you from growth. That's where the internal struggle lies. In the tension between safety and expansion, you want to grow, but growth requires discomfort. It requires risk. It requires you to believe in a future that doesn't have guarantees, and that terrifies the part of you that's been burned before. So it whispers, don't try again, don't get too excited, don't get your hopes up. Not to destroy you, but to shield you. It just doesn't know that the shield is also a cage. The truth is, the people we think we're fighting, the ex, the critic, the person who let us down, they're just mirrors. They reflect back something we haven't resolved within ourselves. If someone triggers your fear of abandonment, it's because there's a wound inside you that hasn't been healed, not because they're more powerful than you. If you're constantly chasing validation, it's not because they're withholding it, it's because a part of you still doubts your worth without it. And that's a hard pill to swallow, because it means the work isn't in changing them, it's in facing yourself, it's in asking, why does this hurt the way it does? Why do I feel small in this situation? What part of me still believes I need to earn love instead of just receiving it? You can walk away from toxic people, but if you don't deal with the voice inside you that attracts them, you'll meet them again in different faces. You can build walls around your heart, but if you haven't resolved what made you build them in the first place, love will never feel safe. You can pretend you're fine, but if you haven't healed, your patterns will eventually speak louder than your words. The internal struggle isn't weakness, it's where the transformation happens. It's in those silent moments when no one is watching and you decide to show up for yourself anyway, when you choose not to run from your pain, but to sit with it, understand it, and ask what it's trying to teach you. When you stop waiting for someone else to rescue you and realize that you are your own safe space, you start to win that battle every time you choose truth over comfort, every time you say, "This scares me, but I'm going to do it anyway." Every time you stop blaming others for your unhappiness and start doing the inner work to reclaim your peace. That's not easy. It takes strength most people never see, but that's where everything begins to change. Not when the outside world shifts, but when your inner world does. When the war inside you becomes a dialogue, a partnership, a healing, that's when you finally stop surviving your life and start living it. We live in a world where it's easy to tie our worth to how others see us. How many people like our post, respond to our message, choose us, praise us, or tell us we're enough? Somewhere along the way, we've learned to measure our value through the reflections of others. If they show interest, we feel seen. If they withdraw, we question ourselves. If they compliment us, we glow. If they criticize, we shrink. But the truth is, your worth doesn't require validation. It never did. Validation is a fleeting thing. It comes and goes, often dependent on someone else's mood, preferences, wounds, or blind spots. And if your sense of value rises and falls with someone else's opinion, you become a prisoner of inconsistency. One day you feel amazing, the next invisible, not because you've changed, but because you're using someone else's lens to define yourself. There's a dangerous pattern that begins to form when you start living for that external nod of approval. You begin to perform instead of express. You begin to please instead of live. You start curating yourself, filtering your truth, softening your edges, dimming your light, not because you want to, but because you fear rejection. You fear that if someone really saw you, they might not want you, and so you chase. You overthink your words, your responses, your presence. You read into silences. You wait for texts like they are life support. You try to earn love that should have never had a price, and in doing so, you hand your power over to someone who probably doesn't even know what to do with it. But here's something most people never tell you: someone else's recognition of your worth is not what makes it real. It's already there. It was there before they noticed you, and it will remain long after they've forgotten your name. Your value isn't something you acquire through approval. It's something you awaken through acceptance, self-acceptance. When you truly believe in your worth, you stop negotiating your value. You stop proving yourself to people who don't even understand what they're looking for. You stop explaining your soul to those who aren't even listening. You begin to exist in your fullness, not because someone clapped for you, but because you've finally decided that you no longer need the applause. There's something powerful that happens when you shift from needing validation to simply appreciating connection. You move differently. You speak more honestly. You stop asking, "Do they like me?" and start asking, "Do I feel aligned, respected, understood?" You start to walk away from attention that doesn't feel intentional. You stop confusing being wanted with being valued, because being wanted is often about how well you fit into someone else's moment, but being valued is about how deeply someone sees you, honors you, and chooses you consistently, even when it's not convenient. You don't have to be perfect to be worthy. You don't have to say all the right things or hide the messy parts of your story. Your real power begins when you stop waiting for permission to exist as you are. When you stop auditioning in rooms you were never meant to be in, when you look in the mirror and decide, "I'm enough, now, not later, not when I lose 10 pounds, not when I get the job, not when they love me back, now." Some people will never see your value, not because it's invisible, but because they're not equipped to recognize it. That's not your failure, that's their limitation, and it says nothing about what you're worth. The moment you stop needing validation to feel whole is the moment you become untouchable in the most beautiful way. You stop chasing and you start attracting. You stop bending and you start becoming. You realize that the love you were so desperately seeking was never truly about them. It was always about you giving it back to yourself, and once you do that, everything changes, not because the world finally sees you, but because you finally do. Courage doesn't always look like some grand, heroic moment. It doesn't always come with a loud declaration or a standing ovation. Sometimes courage is whisper, quiet. It's the decision to show up when everything in you wants to hide. It's the moment you speak your truth, even when your voice shakes. It's telling someone how you really feel, knowing full well you might not hear what you want in return. Every act of courage, no matter how small it seems, is a win. We often dismiss our own bravery because we've been taught to believe that only big moves count, that leaving the relationship, quitting the job, moving to another city. Those are the milestones that matter. But what about the courage it takes to get out of bed when your heart feels heavy? What about the courage to not text someone who's no longer good for you, even though your whole body misses them? What about the courage to start over with nothing but your self-respect? There's a quiet rebellion in every moment you choose yourself, in every moment you stop running from the discomfort and decide to face it head on, in every breath you take where fear is still present, but you keep moving forward anyway. That's not weakness, that's strength in its purest form. Courage isn't about not being afraid, it's about being afraid and still choosing to do what aligns with your truth. It's the moment you realize that comfort is no longer serving you and you step into the unknown. Not because it's safe, but because it's right. You might not get it perfect, you might stumble, you might even fall. But courage was never about the outcome, it was always about the attempt, and every time you choose courage, something inside you shifts. You become less dependent on external approval, you become more grounded in your own voice. You start to trust yourself in a way that feels unshakable. Not because everything suddenly becomes easy, but because you've proven to yourself that you can survive hard things, and not just survive, but grow from them. You don't have to wait for the fear to go away before you take the next step. In fact, waiting for fear to disappear is the fastest way to stay stuck. Courage doesn't wait for perfect timing. It lives in the messy, awkward, uncertain moments where you choose growth over avoidance. There's courage in saying, "This is who I am," even if someone doesn't understand it. There's courage in walking away from a situation that looks fine on the outside but is draining you on the inside. There's courage in asking for help, in admitting that you're struggling, in being real when it's easier to pretend. You don't get stronger by avoiding the discomfort. You get stronger by leaning into it. Every act of courage stretches you. It builds muscle. It teaches you that fear is a sign you're doing something that matters, that you're alive, expanding, evolving. And with each brave choice, you gather evidence that you are capable, more than capable, of handling what life throws your way. Sometimes you won't feel brave. Sometimes it'll feel like all you're doing is surviving. But even in that, there's courage. There's courage in choosing to try again after failure, in showing up vulnerable after being hurt, in keeping your heart open in a world that keeps asking you to close it. Courage is not a destination, it's a daily decision. It's the quiet yes to yourself when everything else says no. And the beauty is, the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Not easier, but more familiar, and that familiarity becomes your foundation. So the next time you catch yourself doing something that scares you, even a little, honor that, recognize it. That's you growing. That's you changing. That's you winning a battle no one else may ever see. And that win matters more than you realize. If you take one thing with you from this moment, let it be this. You are not here to keep proving your worth to people who can't see it. You are not here to fight for scraps of love, for fleeting approval, or for a version of yourself that keeps shrinking to make others comfortable. The real victory is when you stop looking outward and start showing up for yourself, fully, unapologetically, and with courage. The war inside you isn't a sign of weakness. It's a call to rise, to heal, to evolve. And every time you choose your peace, your truth, your growth, you win. Thank you.